Welcome, Dr. Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Dr. Dave. How are you doing?
Most excellent, sir. Thank you for asking. Well, we'd like to welcome all of our viewers and listeners to another journey, another episode of Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, Today's topic is going to be paying it forward.
Okay.
So that's a good topic. It's giving back and paying it forward. And what else can we talk about with that? A lot, because that's why we brought it up on for this episode. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mr. Joe, Dr. Joe Hamlett, do you have any thoughts on that before we really jump into the deep end?
Well, paying it forward for me has, I guess, changed over the years.
Mm,
I feel now I have a greater responsibility to pay it forward. So
mm.
that's how I'll kind of start or kind of leave that out there for us
Yeah,
to.
that's a great way to start it off, because our perceptions do change about what paying it forward means, and maybe what it involves in paying it forward. Sometimes we need to be on the receiving end, and sometimes we need to be on the initiating end of paying it forward. So for me, paying it forward, I never really embraced the concept until probably about, well, I would say probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And as much as my mind says I'm still a spring chicken, my body's telling me something completely different. Like, you
Right.
might be an old rooster in the corner of the cage, but you're not a spring chicken anymore. And I know
Right.
roosters and chickens are not the same animal, but I get that.
Right. Right.
Thank you, listeners, for pointing that out to me. I appreciate that. So, but yeah, paying it forward. Why does that make a difference, and why is that important? So, I'm going to just kind of go back into my journey and think about this for a little bit on all the times I needed a little help or assistance or guidance or coaching or mentoring, or just insightful words or encouraging words, and kind of reflect on the times early in my career I didn't have that. And that can be lonely and challenging. It can be a struggle, to think that you're kind of alone in the world, and kind of trying to figure out how do you get to the next step? What is the next step?
Right.
What
Right.
is the next breath? In some cases, you're just kind of stuck. And maybe it's a cognitive stuck. You're not sure what to do next because of a choice, or maybe you're just really like stuck, and maybe it's a financial stuckness, and you're just like, what do I do? I want to do this, but I can't take that next step. And for me, paying it forward really began with realizing how much people were helping me. And I just didn't
Right. Yep.
realize it. I had my blinders on, I wasn't
Right.
really, I was hearing and listening, but I wasn't really accepting what they were saying. And so
Right.
therefore,
Yep.
they were paying it forward to me, but I wasn't really receiving it. I was just kind of there. And so when I started to realize that, what they were, what I was being told, or what was being suggested to me, and I actually started embracing that, that's when I realized the true value and the gift that was being given to me. And that was after the first time I was in the military, maybe even after the second time, into my third time. And I started really doing some of that critical self-reflection that we talk
Yep.
about so
Yep.
often, and realizing what had really transpired and what I was or was not doing at that time. And so, even with some of the leadership training and supervisor training I had received by that point, I really had not embraced the concept of what paying it forward really was. And when I finally did, I realized that there's a tremendous amount of value to that,
Yep.
to myself, but not only to myself, but to others. And so there is kind of a two-way street about that, I guess you could say. And it's not so much, well, I'm doing it for me. I just realized the value of what it feels like and what it means to give to someone else without expecting anything in return. Just the gift of
Right.
knowledge, that paying it forward piece. And then that's when I really started finding a lot of joy in it,
Right.
because, and that's really kind of the premise of our one of the premises of our podcast is paying it forward by helping people that may be stuck or not sure or just need that little bit of encouragement or that little push to say, hey, it's okay to take that step or get a little bit uncomfortable or to go that direction, just that support, if you will. And when I started embracing, paying it forward, I guess it gets back to the laws of attraction or karma, if you will, or
Right.
you know, the golden rule, treating others as you'd want to be treated. There's a bunch of different phrases or quotes that we can bring into this, but I really started finding a lot of joy in that because from an empathetic perspective, I started realizing what it felt like to not have that, and then realized once I did realize what it was like to receive that and embrace when others were paying it forward to me, there's really a big value to that. And I started really appreciating things a lot differently, where I had not appreciated them before. I was
Right. Yeah.
revisiting those pieces and realizing, wow, people have really been giving me some great advice or great encouragement or really providing that inspiration. And it was kind of like a reflective, oh, they did do those things or those things were happening, I just didn't realize it. And there's when I came to that realization and actualization of what was occurring, it just meant so much more to for me to give back or pay forward to others. So I'll kind of pause there for a moment.
So Dave, you brought up something that's very important and very similar to you, that recognition of people throughout our lives, paying it forward, helping us and giving us that advice and some direction. But it wasn't until, I did some critical self-reflection and started to realize that same thing that, all along people have been helping us. People have been, helping us, trying to point us in the right direction. But it wasn't until I started doing my own, critical self-reflection that I realized it still comes down to, that old saying, you can bring people to water, but you can't make them drink. And that's literally what was happening with me too. And, I think the realization hit me back in 14 after I finished my doctorate degree. And I probably already told this story before, but when I'm sitting there after I just finished my doctorate degree, my wife looked over at me and she said, "Hey, what are you going to do now? You look bored, and now you don't have all that, you have all that time back that you were, doing with your education." And I said, "I really don't know. I'm thinking about teaching, being an adjunct professor." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you'd be good at that." And me kind of going on the offensive side right away. I was like, why do you think that? She said, "Well, for one, no," I interjected and said, "Why? Because I just, I've been going to school for 9 years." And she said, "Yeah, that, but also the fact that you're a nerd." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You're a nerd." I
What did
said,
you just call me?
and I was like, "Why? Because I went to school and got my doctorate degree. Now I'm a nerd." She said, "No, you've always been a nerd."
Always been,
And I was like, "No, I haven't. I'm cool. I'm the cool guy. I can't be a nerd." And I really started to, feel some kind of way, like, "What? How could she call me a nerd? I've been I'm a cool guy." And I really did take a look at my past, and I realized that I was a nerd all that time. And so that's another topic for, a different day. But I realized that I was a nerd all this time and I was trying to be somebody else. But to that point, um, a lot of times people have been helping us along the way. And that's what I realized in that moment, that yeah, people were helping me. Even in high school when they were saying, "Hey, don't take this class, take that class," because they were recognizing my talents and abilities back then. But me, again, trying to be the cool kid or the cool guy, I just discounted what they said or what they thought. But it wasn't until that critical self-reflection, like you said, back in um, '05 when I went back to school. And so then I think fast forward just a few years, and it was in the military when I became a first sergeant. For those members that know what a first sergeant is out there, like an HR manager, but I became a first sergeant, and I had a command chief at the time. She was female, African American, and she never came to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to be your mentor. Hey, I'm going to help you. I'm going to take you along." But what she did do was started to include me in things, and that really helped me open my mind to the possibilities. She started inviting me to different meetings that were higher level, things that I hadn't experienced before, and so she brought me along, and again, it opened my eyes to the possibilities. So by that same token, she helped me open my eyes. So I, in return, came back and started doing the same for others. And so as I
Yeah.
started to progress, I started reaching back and bringing those other people with me, because I, like you said, I realized the impact that had on me. And I also wanted to pay that forward and provide that for other people. And so that's, I think, when it really hit me, or clicked for me, around 2010 time frame for me, is when I started to see the impact that paying it forward, opening, introducing people to things that they weren't familiar with or that they weren't aware of. That's when I realized how the impact of that. And since
Mhm.
that time, that's what I've been doing. And like you say, this podcast is a perfect example of us, you know, paying it forward. Again, sharing our journeys and potentially sharing some of the things we've done and we've encountered that may help you not, go through that long scenic route. But now, and I said it earlier, it has become a responsibility in my eyes, because we, I think often think, now that we're a doctor, do we now just sit up here and kind of look down on other people because they're not doctors? No, we don't. We want to help them, and it's not about making or helping people become doctors, but it goes back to previous episodes where we said we want you to be the best versions of yourself. And so again, if we can help in any way by doing that, that's part of our paying it forward. And,
Yeah.
and
And
so
good.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, and when we talk about paying it forward, sometimes it can be, maybe it's monetary, maybe it's a
Right, right.
tangible or physical object or thing or
Yep,
item,
yep,
and maybe
absolutely.
it's just cognitive. It's the support or the
Right.
guidance or
Or
inspiration
encouragement.
or encouragement,
Yeah,
or maybe it's believing in someone when they don't believe in themselves.
right.
I
Yep.
had that growing up. I was not a confident kid, you know, and the military helped me a lot, but it was the military helped me a lot, but it was the people that were looking out for me that I later realized were looking out for me. And in the
Right.
moment I didn't realize it, that were paying it forward to try to
Right.
get me on track, to nudge, not push, but maybe to nudge a little bit, to get me a little bit closer to get on the right path. And now I'm there, and now I've got my wheels on, if you will, and I can start doing my own thing. But it was because of them. It was with their assistance and guidance. And I can't tell you how many times in my life, Joe and I've talked about this a lot. We did not grow up financially fortunate, we'll say. We're absolutely blessed with what we did have. It's helped us be who we are, but on the same side, on the same thought, we weren't fortunate. So as I look back and reflect, I realize people were giving a lot to me. I just didn't realize it. And it
Right.
wasn't until
Right.
I was open and receptive to those gifts
Yep.
that I actually received them, because they were basically just like, hit me in the head and falling down, right?
Yep.
I got a hard head. But it wasn't until I started catching some of those balls, or that I was able to say, wow, this is the gift I've received in support, recognition,
Yep.
compassion,
Yep.
empathy, sympathy. Maybe it was my parents, my car broke down. There was no way I could fix it. They gave me a car at one point. It wasn't a great car by any means, but it was four wheels that I could get
Right.
across
Right.
town on. It
Yep.
didn't have air conditioning. One of the windows didn't work, but it was a vehicle, which was more than
Right.
my two legs. So you can drive a lot, you can drive in, 20 miles a lot faster than you can walk it. So I was
Right. Right.
grateful. So
Yep.
little things like that, paying it forward without expectation for something in return. And
Right.
that's the big
Yep.
piece of it. Then if you expect something in return, that becomes a quid pro quo. That's a
Right.
this for that. That's transactional. Paying it forward is about just the joy of giving and knowing that you're doing something good to help someone else in need. They may
Right.
not
Right.
realize they're in need. You do. And by paying it forward and helping them and assisting them in whatever way you can within your own means, we're not saying sacrifice your business or sacrifice your household or yourself, but if there's a gift that you can give, then that's a good thing. It can be something as simple as donating, you know, used furniture or
Right. Right.
clothes
Right.
to a church or a nonprofit or someone in need.
Right.
I remember watching a few, documentaries. I like documentaries. And one of the individuals said that, they were asked to come, they had applied for a job and they needed to go to an interview, but they didn't have a suit. They didn't have the money for a suit. And one of the people that they knew gave them a suit.
Right.
It wasn't
Right.
a fancy one. It may not have been perfect, but it may not have fit, but at least it was something other than a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. You know,
Right.
that's a
Right.
little thing. And they got the job. It wasn't because they were or were not wearing a suit, but it helped that person with their confidence and to be more presentable for that opportunity. It could be something as little as that,
Well,
you know.
you said it earlier too. Just something as simple as even encouraging someone or
Yeah.
supporting someone. It doesn't have to be any
It
monetary
doesn't have
or
to be tangible
no.
necessarily.
It could be just something as simple as supporting someone else or helping them recognize the potential that they have, some of the
Yeah.
gifts that they already have. So
When they think that they've hit the end and that they've still got the potential and
right, right.
the gas in their tank to go
Right.
forward, you
We
push them.
oftentimes think that we have to give people something,
Yeah.
physical in
Physically, and we
nature,
don't. Yeah.
but we don't. It's just again, just walking up to somebody that's having a tough time and saying, "Hey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be
Yeah.
all right." Just taking your time out of your day to just console them or to assist them with something.
Hmm.
That's as simple as paying it forward can be. It can just
Yeah.
be you being human,
Yeah. Being
being
human.
nice
That's
to
a great way to
someone.
just
Yeah,
being human.
right.
Yeah.
It doesn't take the charity giving to charity or thousands of dollars or anything like that. It
Yeah.
in a lot of cases it is just recognizing somebody else and
Yeah.
helping
And
a
their
person.
potential and encouraging them when they're maybe when
Right.
they're down in the dumps or they've hit an
Right.
obstacle
Yep.
or a tough spot in the road or in their journey and they're just really second guessing themselves. I did that a lot on my journey.
Right.
And, having those professors, having those peers, those colleagues, those supervisors, those family members who really
Right. Yep.
believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, they were paying it forward.
Right.
And as a result, through their encouragement, that enabled me and facilitated me and helped me to complete some of the journeys I've had as a part of the bigger journey and
Right.
what enabled me to give back, and I'll go, down a little tangent. When I was teaching school, or when I teach classes and students, they may or may not have the same education and level as I do, but they may or may not have had the same journey. And if I recognize that they're struggling, I don't beat them when they're down and say, "Well, you really don't get this statistics thing, do you?" It's like, no, that's not our job. That's not our position.
Right.
Our The expectation now is help those people,
Right.
because
Exactly.
think back, Dave, when you had your journey and you were struggling in school and class,
Yep.
did you want to be beat down when you were struggling? No, there's enough of that going on in the world. There's far fewer people that are saying, "Hey, Dave, you're struggling. I see you're struggling. Yeah, I'm struggling. I don't think I can do this. Dave, you got this, man. Joe, you got this."
Right.
And when you're struggling, reach out to me, listen to me, lean on me. I'm there for you. And that's really what got me through more than the tangible. Now, admittedly, those tangible objects, that car when I needed it, that $20 or $100 when I needed it the most meant the world to me. And I did pay those folks back in full and then some. It may not have been the same thing, but I reciprocated it. And that's what paying it forward's all about, is
So,
creating that perpetual wheel to help others.
and so to kind of go along that line, my original statement was about a mentor that helped me, which, like I say, I didn't know that she was being my mentor, but
The
she was
best
paying it.
kind.
Yeah, but yeah, we didn't sit down and say, "Hey, I'm going to be your mentor. You're going to be my mentee." And you're right, that for me was better. Just that she took it upon herself, paying it forward, and did it.
Yeah.
But she reminded me, and this is how powerful. One example of paying it forward. So, at her retirement, she's up there talking, and one of the last things she left us with was the fact that we should all tell our story,
Mm,
because
that's
we
powerful.
don't know. And you kind of alluded to that when you're talking about, you got a student that's struggling, and you reflect back on how you were struggling, as a student, and now you can relay that to them. That's really no different than you telling your story, because you never know how that can impact somebody, or positively impact somebody, or
Mm,
help them along the way,
yeah.
because they see it. Well, this person overcame that struggle. Maybe I can too. So I think that it goes along with that paying it forward piece, to help people realize, again, now that we're doctors, people may view us differently. They may think, we've been doctors since we were kids, in some cases,
We were
jokingly, but
born doctors.
right. Because, people, that's why we're telling our story now, our journey,
Right.
because, people may have a huge misperception of how we became doctors.
Right.
And that's what we want to clarify every week, is that, and you said at the beginning, we didn't grow up in the greatest of circumstances, to expect that we were going to be doctors even. So
Yeah.
that's why I think it's important for us to continue to tell our story, and because again, we don't know how. Because I heard things at her retirement speech from her own mouth that I did not know, that she had to endure and overcome. And even though we had been, she had been my mentor, and we had created this relationship, I still didn't know some of these things about her. So, just telling her story again made it more important for me to continue to pay it forward.
Mhm.
And so I think that's big as well, is to tell your story, because you're in a sense, you're paying it forward. You're helping people that may be
Absolutely.
similar to you, or maybe, worse off than you, but still seeing, and I tell people this today, I know I'm an example now. And that's why when I said at the very beginning that I have a responsibility, to help others realize, and that's why we always go back to the potential piece, because I didn't realize I could be a doctor or anything, that I've become to this date, even a podcast host. I didn't know I could do all these things, but
Yeah.
now we're that example of what people can achieve. And this is our way. One way for us to pay it forward is to tell our story and to share our story with others, so that if they are, you know, feeling down, or run into obstacles, this may be a way that they can realize, hey, well, Joe and Dave did it. I can do it. So
Mhm.
I think that's also important as far as we talk about paying it forward, and going back to responsibility piece. So this almost scared me at the very beginning when I heard this. So I told Dave this story the other day, but I was at my brother's graduation, which he graduated much later than me, like I did. We went back to school so much later, but I had graduated, but I hadn't gone to my ceremony yet to be hooded. And I was at his graduation, and there was a few doctors up there that were being hooded as doctors. And they started reading off this script. Now that you're a doctor, you have the responsibility to change the world, to do these things. And I was just sitting there. I was like, wait a minute. Well, when I was going through this doctoral journey, or to get earn my doctorate degree, nobody told me that was going to be my responsibility, that I have to change the world now. And so I mean, I literally was listening to those words and I was thinking, what a huge responsibility I have now, on my shoulders, that I have to change the world in some way. And it was absolutely the truth. I said it earlier, now that I've become a doctor, I can't just sit up here, and look down on people, say I'm a doctor and you're not.
Yeah.
No, I have to pay it forward to some
Yeah.
degree. I have to. And that's why I said the responsibility piece, because I did take it to heart that was my responsibility. It wasn't even my hooding ceremony,
Mm.
but I could relate to those few people up there that were being hooded, and being told or instructed that now you must go forward, and change the world. And that really hit me. I mean, all those thousands of people out in the audience, I felt that it was my responsibility. And from that day forward, even though I had been paying it forward up to that point, I just knew, that I had a huge responsibility to continue that, to not just a small degree, but to a high level of responsibility. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure I clarified that responsibility piece about paying it forward. That I think we do have, a responsibility,
Yeah. And
and I
you don't
view
have
it
to
that
be a
way.
doctor like Joe and I to pay it forward. You can
Right,
not have
right,
an education at all. I mean, and when I say that with my heart, because some people aren't going to go to college. Some
right,
people aren't going to have a great job. Some people aren't going to have great material things, but they're great people. They're very
right,
wonderful people. And so when we talk about paying it forward, we're not talking about just from an educational or
right,
a
right.
position of superiority or authority.
It's life
We're talking
experiences
about
that
life
that you can share
experience,
with other
family,
people.
work,
Right,
just like Joe said earlier, just being kind people, sharing that kindness and that love for your fellow human being, your neighbor, your friend, your maybe someone you don't even know, an acquaintance or someone that you don't meet that's just
right,
or that you've met that's just down or struggling. Or maybe they're not struggling, they just need that little extra bit to get to the next level. I mean, that's what paying it forward's all about. And again, without expectation, just
right,
for the
right.
sheer
Yeah,
joy
yeah,
of doing it, knowing that even if that person doesn't realize it, that you've helped them, you know what you've done is going to help them or hopefully help them, or that you've just done the right thing in that moment,
right,
you know.
right. No, I agree
So
100%. Yep.
we've got a couple minutes left. Any final thoughts, Joe?
Like I said, like Dave said, and like we both said throughout this, episode, paying it forward, for me, it didn't really take until I, again, did that self reflection and started to want to receive those things, and
Mm,
understood, that, like Dave said, all this time people have been helping us and trying to support us, but we haven't accepted it. It wasn't until we really started to look at what we have been, all these gifts we had been given, and recognize how powerful that was. So, I encourage everybody to really think about, really think about when somebody helped you. And again, it may have just been something simple, but the reality, it was really big. And so
yeah.
those things are all around us. I guarantee if you really just sit back and think, you'll realize that people have been paying it forward to you, and then you have that obligation to pay it forward to others.
Yeah.
And like I say, it could just be in simple being nice to someone, helping someone when they're down, just an encouraging word. It doesn't take you being.
Doesn't take much.
No, it
It doesn't
doesn't
take
take nothing,
anything really.
nothing at all. It's just
Yeah.
being kind, being
Yeah.
courteous to people. Just those are things that a lot of people will remember, versus dollars and cents that you gave them, but just that, when they were down, the one day you approached them and said, "Hey, how's it going?" And you know, offered to sit with them. So you can
Yep.
pay it forward in a lot of different ways.
A lot of
And
simple,
I just,
simple
yeah,
ways,
and I
easy
just
ways.
encourage you to look back at your past and you know, make sure you're paying it forward like people did for you. And I guarantee if you really look back, you'll realize there were many moments in your life that people were paying it forward to you. And so I just encourage you to continue to pay it forward to others. Um, so that's about all I have, Dave.
That was an awesome summary, Joe. I don't think there's really anything I can add that we haven't already said. So,
Right.
with that, we want to thank our viewers and listeners who are tuning in for the first time, or maybe this is the next
Yeah.
time, or maybe it's the sequential order of things. Thank you so much for all
Yeah.
your support and participation and taking time out of your busy days and schedules to just give us a few moments of your time to listen to what we have to share. With that, thank you again, and until next time, keep on being your not so ordinary you.